Hello, how are you tonight? I am here to introduce you to my friend, Dr. Aimie Apigian. And she seems to be a little bit late. I don't know if she couldn't get on or what, but we'll just chat while we're waiting for her. Dr. Aimie is a trauma specialist. I'm going to post a little bio about her. She's a board-certified preventive and addiction medicine physician, and she has a master's in biochemistry and public health, and she is also specializes in addiction medicine, and she has been working with trauma and helping people recover from trauma and helping people who have a personal experience in foster parenting and adopting, and she has gone through a lot of different things herself. I hope to be able to introduce her to you in person. Here she is. She's coming. Yay. Okay, so here we go. Hi, Dr. Aimie. Can you hear me? Anyway, here we are talking about Dr. Aimie. Hi, Aimie. Hi.
Here we go. I think, yes, my mic and my camera settings were off. I am so sorry.
That's okay. Yeah. I was just doing a little intro, a little bio on you since I wanted to start on time. So I was just telling everybody that I think you're wonderful and that what your background is a little bit, but I would love to have you tell a little bit more about your background since it's kind of impersonal, just reading a bio. And I really want to know what you did with a surgical residency since we both did that. So you have a minute to talk about that.
Yeah, that is where I started. So I actually went to medical school at Loma Linda, Southern California. And at the time I started medical school as an MD PhD student. So I was also on the track to get a PhD in biochemistry. And so I was doing both there, and then decided, you know what, like I really enjoy more of the clinical work, and I've had enough of the biochemistry. So I left with a master's in biochemistry, and then the medical degree, headed up to Portland where I did general surgery residency. After medical school, I did take a year off to be at home with my son, who I had adopted, in order to try to help him recover. He was having a really hard time with all of his past life experiences still influencing his emotions and his behaviors. And I wanted to be at home with him much more than I had been able to, certainly going through medical school. So took that year off and then started general surgery residency, and really enjoyed it. Like I really love surgery. I think I chose it because of my personality, and I like to be very focused. I like to be very efficient. The long hours in the office were not something that I enjoyed. And so I started surgery residency, got through a few years of that, and then had an accident. I had a body surfing accident, and I broke my collarbone. And that really threw me for a spin. And that kind of started the beginning of all of my health problems that then ultimately led me to chronic fatigue, depression, anxiety, overweight, thyroid issues, autoimmune issues. And at that point on my health journey, realizing that I could not maintain the schedule of a surgeon, especially through the rest of surgery residency, where I was not able to get consistent sleep and maintain my health. And so that's then what prompted my change in career and my focus.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I did 2 years of surgical residency and had more of a midlife crisis at age 27. So didn't have any kids, but just found myself trying to figure out like what would happen if I were to die tomorrow, and what would I decide to do. And I had up to that point always kind of lived like I want to be the most productive, the most happy that I can be.
Yep.
And I went from surgery to ER. And then while working in the ER, actually began to study acupuncture. So that's my very short version of my story.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that the very very end of my surgery residency, I was starting to go into the kinesiology. So I had become interested in kinesiology from my chiropractor, who was helping me with my health journey. And he was starting to do things that I was like, wait a second, what are you doing there? You're doing things like muscle testing. I've never heard of this. And yet it seems to be working. And so I started going into, there's quite a bit of things in Portland, Oregon, in terms of integrative medicine and alternative medicine and DO and chiropractor schools. And so, yeah, I would start to take these courses in kinesiology, and it just started to blow my mind, like what, the extra knowledge that I was gaining about the body that I had never learned or seen it in the context of traditional medical training.
Yeah. So tell me about how you began to discover the impact of trauma on people's health.
Well, it really started with me adopting my son from the foster care system. And I did this at a time when I was very naive, and I knew that I knew how to help him. Like, I didn't even have a doubt. There wasn't even that, I wonder how am I going to do this? I wonder what it will be like. I knew that I knew what to do. And so I signed up to be a foster parent. It's a long process. There's a lot of changes that you have to do to your home. And then there's just that waiting. And finally, there was a couple calls that came in, but finally this call came in. And what they told me was that there's this 4-year-old boy, and he has blown through another home. And if we don't find a place for him, he's going to have to go into a group home. And he's already been in a number of placements. So in terms of placements, like all the different moves that he had been, it had been over 20 placements in his lifetime. And there was some prenatal exposure to substances. There was some early life exposure to substances. And will you take him? And so, of course, my answer was yes. Didn't even think twice about it. I just knew that this was meant to be. And I threw myself into this, doing everything wrong. Of course, I didn't know that I was doing it wrong, but even just the first moment that I saw him, right? And we already have this relationship established. He's coming into my home. I am at least his temporary mom. And I do what I think many people do, unknowingly, unintentionally, thinking that we're doing the best thing. I get down on his level. And in terms of what I now know about trauma, that would be the last thing that you would want to do for a child who's looking for someone bigger, stronger, wiser than they are to help guide them through this place that has been very confusing, very painful for them. And here it's like one more person that's like, oh, one more person who's weak, who's down at my level, who's just going to be like another buddy, another friend. I need a guide. So I started off wrong and got to learn a lot of lessons, Dr. Shiroko, a lot of lessons. And that was where my training in trauma started. It didn't start with the textbooks for me. It started with personal experience and realizing that everything that I knew was actually not working. All of the conventional stuff, even the recommended therapies like the play therapy, it's supposed to be this great big thing for kids and their childhood trauma. No, it actually made him worse. It would make him more dysregulated, for people who know that word. And there was just so much cleanup that I had to do afterwards. And he was very aggressive. He was very expressive in his anger towards the world and towards everybody, and very aggressive in terms of his self-protection methods. And so it was a real challenge. It was a real challenge for us to get through that period. And I kept trying to find what next. Okay, that didn't work. What's next? And that's how I learned about trauma, and how it's not just something that's in your past, but the body remembers the past, and the nervous system especially has been wired to survive the past and now continues on with you in your present moment. And so your nervous system will continue to live out those patterns that it has learned how to survive, even if you're in a completely new environment. And so We really need to understand our nervous system, be able to understand what state it's in, be able to even recognize when it's in a survival state, when it's in that overwhelm or shutdown state, and then how to shift it, and then being able to work with the biology pieces to know what we can do in order to help keep it in that parasympathetic state and not have it be going back out into the stress or survival responses.
Well, you taught me a lot already. I took that class after I listened to your talk on freeze. And so, and I know your next thing here now is coming up is Biology of Trauma Summit.
I know, I'm so excited about it.
I'm super excited too. I'm hoping that a lot of my audience will watch it because I think almost everybody has some kind of trauma. And
everybody has had some life trauma.
Yeah. And what was so valuable to me was that in that course that I took with you, just tuning into my body and recognizing that me as a former surgeon and ER doc, and, you know, like, I'm tough.
Go, go, go.
Go, go. And, you know, like that is still in me even 20 years after I stopped doing it, and just overriding my body. So not even, you know, and I teach people how to listen to their bodies.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I always hear my body.
Right.
But I learned through your class, I learned, you know, that it's not just hearing it, you actually have to do something with it. So I've already changed, you know, just in some of the exercises that I learned in that, was it 3 weeks, 21 days?
Yeah, 21 days. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so please talk to us about what you're going to offer during the Biology of Trauma Summit. And I have a link here for people to sign up to. Here's what it's called, the Biology of Trauma Summit. And then we'll have the link here for signing up.
So one of my big motivations for doing this summit was one of the frustrations that I have with how trauma is currently addressed. And for many people, for many professionals still, we kind of lump trauma into this, well, that's psychology. Change the way you think, reframe your past, reframe the situation, reframe your childhood. And just by changing your thoughts, you will change how you feel, which is true to a certain degree. To a certain degree. And that degree is these chronic changes that trauma has caused to our body. I was talking about how our nervous system actually changes. The definition of a trauma is that it causes lasting changes. If it doesn't cause those lasting changes, it's actually just a stress that we go through, and then our body returns back to its former state of health. A trauma, the body does not return to its former state of health. And so what happens is that, sure, we can change our thoughts, but unless you want to consistently be sitting there on your meditation pillow, on your yoga mat, or on the beach, wherever you are, right? And constantly like redirecting your thoughts. No, let's not think that. Let's think this instead. Unless you want to constantly be doing that, we've actually got to be changing what's driving those thoughts. And that's the nervous system. That's the survival system. So one of the big things that I've learned in my work now that I get to do is recognizing that there is this stress response, but then there's this survival response, this freeze response. And many, many people, me included, this was most of my life until I did this work, live in what is called a chronic freeze state, where we're not fully alive. This can look like many different things, right? We can even just wake up in the morning and be like, does it have to be morning yet? Right? Like, I don't want to get out of bed. Or it can just look like zoning out, right? Like we get in the car, we're going to work, we're going on a drive, and we zone out. Like our mind just kind of goes somewhere else. We zone out in front of the TV or with a movie, or we numb with food or exercise or sex or medications, prescriptions, supplements. Like there's so many different forms in which this can look like. But this is the reality for many people's nervous system, is that the accumulated burden of life, stress, and trauma has created such a different biology that we're living in this state of not being fully alive and fully present. So this is what I wanted to kind of share with people, share this knowledge, share these tools and solutions So I have over 40 interviews, 40 guest experts that I've interviewed for this summit that are specifically talking about how life traumas, different stressors have affected our biology. And so looking at, all right, you're serious about doing this personal growth work, you're serious about doing the emotional work, you're serious now about addressing this trauma that you recognize is still kind of driving maybe your relationship patterns, your health patterns. There can be all of these things that are a result of this stored trauma, but how do we actually change that? What are the leverage points in our biology that we get to use in order to help accelerate our healing journey back to full physical, emotional, and mental health?
It's awesome.
It is. Like, I'm so super excited about how all of these different topics are able to kind of come together in one big conference, in one big summit, and really be able to give people both like the big picture view of, hey, like this is what's going on, you guys, especially coming through this last year with COVID and so many of the disruptions of our daily life that happened, and being able to see, ooh, like my mental health is not as great as I thought it was. And I was relying on this. I was relying on my friends. I was relying on going out and doing this. I was relying on this more than what I thought, because when that's taken away, I feel like I'm falling apart. So there's so many things, so many lessons, so many silver linings from this last tough year with the pandemic, that we really can see, okay, we've got to build this resilience. We've got to build this cellular resilience. It's not just in our minds. It's not just something that we change our thoughts. It's actually on a cellular level that we get to improve our resilience and our ability to be present and alive in this world.
And thank you. And in my community is Santa Rosa, and we've had fires every year since 2017.
Yes.
And, when it first happened, I put together a summit called the Disaster Recovery Summit, hosted by our friends at Health Means Community. And I was like, people are traumatized. They're going to be really, they're going to really want to watch this. And nobody, people did, 3,000 or 4,000, but there were 3 major hurricanes. There were these huge fires here, 6,000 homes in my community burnt. And I thought people would jump at this chance to learn about healing themselves as a result of such huge trauma. And now, 3-4 years later, is when people are starting to feel it, or starting to be aware of it. So I think there's a period of shock.
Yes, absolutely.
That, and I kind of thought about the idea of shock, but now I can really see it, because I've been there all of the years since the fires, and every year now we talk about, okay, I'm just waiting for the next evacuation. who lives like that?
Right.
And we're all sitting here living in this area, beautiful area, waiting for the next fire,
disaster,
the next power outage. Like that's how we become conditioned in just such a short time. Do you have any suggestions for how to cope?
Yes, and one of my suggestions is always, let's really start to identify, are you in stress, or are you in the collapse, the freeze, and the overwhelm? Because what we do in either phase is very different. And so people think of, the survival response or a stress response as being fight, flight, or freeze, as if it's all the same state. And that's what we've been taught. That's what I was taught, right? And that's not true. That's not true. The fight or flight state is very high energy, sympathetic. It's what someone would be doing if they're actively fighting a fire, right? You have to be mobilized. You have to have the energy, the adrenaline, in order to do your job, and it's a very active process. But then sometimes, as you use the word shock really refers to this like collapse of the body, where it goes into this numb state. It goes into this kind of foggy state. It's this kind of time slows down. I don't really know where the time has gone. I'm walking through a fog. I feel like everything is in a haze. That is the freeze response. And so we actually address that very differently than what we would do someone who is in an active stress response.
Mm-hmm.
For those people who feel like they are in an active stress response, what they do, the best thing that they can do is to provide for themselves a sense of support. And this can be done through a number of ways. You can sit down with a piece of paper and you can start to list down what are the people, the things, the tools, the resources that you have that are a support for your system.
Mm-hmm.
It can be people, this can be money, this can be jobs, these can be assets, these can be whatever it is, but create a felt sense of support for your body. And this is also where, you did the 21-day journey and now you have specific exercises that would fall under somatic experiencing exercises that you can do for your body, that in a moment's notice, you can create the felt sense of support for your body. You know how to do that. Other people don't know how to do that yet, but this would be something that I would definitely lump into. If you are in the stress state where you're noticing that your heart rate is high, you're sweating, you're very hypervigilant, you are in the stress state and you need to create a felt sense of support for your body. In terms of the biology and the medical stuff, supporting your adrenal glands is really helpful in this period of time. For those people who are in a shock, right? And they're just kind of going through and it feels more like they're just flat. There's not a lot of intense emotions, whether high or low. They're just kind of right in the middle. They're just going through the motions of life. They know that the next disaster is going to happen. So why do anything meaningful right now? Because it's all going to be destroyed anyway, right? Like that's the kind of thought that happens in the freeze response. And the freeze response needs time. It needs time to process everything that has happened. So this is where in terms of the biology, I really am supporting the mitochondria and the energy production so that the body can feel like it has the energy to pull out of the freeze response. It has the energy to even care about life and what you value and your family and your values and all of that. So I'm focusing on the mitochondria and we're just giving it time. So this would be where allow yourself to have that downtime. Don't fight it, right? Don't fight it. I know that you and me, like our personalities are to fight that downtime, right? We like to be busy. We like to keep going. Yeah. And that's a good thing, right? That can be a healthy thing. It's just that when we notice that our body is in that shock state, in that chronic freeze, we need to build time into our schedule, into our day to allow our system more time to just process life, process what's happening, and then it will catch up. It won't always be like that. It will catch up. And so if you've got meetings, if you've got whatever, just make sure that you're scheduling pauses in between those to give your system time to process what's happened, be ready for the next thing, because otherwise you're just going to be piling on stuff and accumulating more life stress and life trauma.
Great. Thank you for that. It was so helpful. You also have, this summit starts on July 19th. Okay. And I signed up and actually bought it because I just wanted to get on it with it. And I want to share it with my clients. But you also have a free ebook. And so I'm going to post that too, Steps to Identify and Heal Trauma, which I just think is so valuable. I mean, I spent so in my career as an acupuncturist, I've obviously met many people who have traumas, and I've developed a series of acupuncture treatments to help the body relax and to help, I call it to help clear the cellular memory of the trauma from the body. And it's remarkable how much difference it makes. Like, there's a series of acupuncture treatments that are designed, they say that you've never felt the same since such and such a date. And when you do that, when you say that, there's a series of acupuncture treatments in my education that you could do. But then I devised more treatments to sort of fit that and to help heal the heart as well. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things that I do for people. Yep. But sometimes, like one of my clients, her home burned in 2017. And of course, she's still in the area and they still haven't rebuilt. And PG&E, lost a case and they're supposed to refund or pay them money. And that still hasn't happened, so these people are held up in court. They have to prove their loss, even though they lost everything, and so this poor, and she has issues with her family members. It's just ongoing trauma. She still hasn't gotten to the freeze state because it's been so much ongoing stress and trauma, like on and on and on. So I do that treatment on her. Yeah, probably at least once a month. So,
mm-hmm. Yeah, acupuncture has been huge for me in my emotional work. So I have an acupuncturist, and I go to her regularly. These are sessions that I schedule even before I think that I need anything.
That's a good idea.
And it's been amazing because even those times when I don't, think that I need something, like we're able to still identify, like this channel has a little block. There's this going on, and that window needs to be opened. There's so much there that has been very synergistic with whatever biology work and trauma work that I'm doing. And that has remained one of my staples that I did all through COVID. Was my acupuncture appointments. I knew that I needed those in order to maintain my balance, my emotional balance, my physical health balance, all of that during that time when my usual coping mechanisms, were not as accessible. I wasn't able to go out and spend time with friends and have that connection and get hugs and get all of that, healthy touch. And so, yeah, there was the dancing lessons and then the acupuncture that were my staples for getting through COVID.
You got dancing lessons? Oh, you must have done them on Zoom.
I did. I started private dance lessons for the first time in my life.
Oh my goodness. Yep. I started painting. Those paintings behind you are my COVID therapy.
There you go. That's awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Any final tips you would love to give my audience about your summit or about dealing with trauma that maybe they could do something simple for themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing, you mentioned it already, but I really just want to emphasize that we're not talking about always big T traumas. Mm-hmm. Everyone has experienced life trauma. So I don't want the word trauma to scare people away, or for you to think that, this is for people who've had really bad life experiences. Mine weren't that bad. Like this is all of that. This really is a focus on the nervous system, our programmed survival response system in our body, and what has gone wrong. Like what are the things that have made it like a little off kilter so that we see the world through a certain lens, and we want to actually address that on a cellular level, not just a psychological level. And so this is for everyone. So it's a solution series for mental health, addictions, and burnout, because this is how stored trauma shows up in our life. It shows up as our emotions, as our relationships. Even with me in my career, like my trauma patterns have showed up there. Because this is the program that drives our health, our body. And so if you're someone who has any kind of a physical health condition, believe me, your life experiences, life stress, life traumas are influencing that, whether or not you recognize it. And so just being able to recognize that, hey, I've got this health problem going on, and I want my nervous system programmed to actually help in my healing process rather than keeping it stuck in that place. This is for you. So there's already some talks that are available. You can certainly purchase it like Dr. Sirocco, but there are some 3 talks that are already available if you register. So you can get started in learning about that. It's Trudy Scott, Dr. Peter Levine, and I'm trying to remember the third one right now, and I'm not remembering it. But there's some great information that you can already start to just dive into and see, does this feel like it resonates? Does this feel like it lands? Does this feel like it can be a big resource for me in my life? And people right now need some healthy, some effective resources and tools for empowering themselves with their own physical, mental, and emotional health.
Totally agree. Yes. One of my realizations was part of the reason that I was good as a surgeon and as an ER doc is because of the traumas of my childhood, and there was not, there was not overt drama all the time, but there was pretty traumatic events that occurred, and I was really good at emergencies because my life was an emergency.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
So being an acupuncturist in a much calmer situation is actually a sign of healing.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a good point, because for many people, their jobs or their current life still requires them to use those coping mechanisms that came out of very stressful times. And it's not a bad thing. Like there is no judgment, there is no bad. This is just how our body is. And if we're at the point in our life where we want to reprogram our body, our biology, our survival system to help in our health, rather than push us further into disease and disconnecting ourselves from our body so that we can do our job, right? Because a large part of surgery, emergency room, and medicine is about not feeling your needs, not feeling your body, but being able to push through and perform, see more patients, keep doing the surgery, right?
Right.
There is that level of disconnection, and that serves a purpose for those jobs. And that was a part of my healing experience as well, is realizing that being in that situation where I was still needing to disconnect from my body was not going to be congruent with the emotional and the trauma work that I was doing for my life. So, but yeah, this is our body. We need to understand it better in order for us to have the life and the health that we want. So let's get at it. Let's understand it and work with it and learn how to support it. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm totally being honored, and I'm looking forward to your summit.
Thank you. Thank you. So appreciate the work that you're doing in the world.
Thank you. Likewise.